This is A-Game, fast-acting, long-lasting, with no side effects.
Hey all my Crimsonites, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel, where we embrace our femininity, increase our womanly value, and celebrate our brothers. So join me on our feminine journey to learn, heal, and grow. Hey there, my Crimsonites, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel. I'm your host, femininity coach, and author of the Crimson Cure, and this is my perspective. So what we're doing today is just a complete season 1 recap for Harlem. And I'm just going to tell y'all why Harlem sucks. Harlem sucks. The Harlem show, y'all know what I'm talking about. The one that's on Amazon Prime. The one that starring Megan Good alongside others, more notably Whoopi Goldberg, which I feel is too good for the show. But this show sucked. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my whole review, because I was going to go episode to episode. But the reality is that the show sucked too bad. But we're going to, instead of just saying that it sucked, I'm going to go through why the show sucked, in my opinion. The entire show. Like, it sucks so bad that I would be surprised if it actually does get a season 2. Because if you go to Amazon Prime, if you got Amazon Prime and you go to it, basically it's going to say season 2 coming soon. But I don't know if they're going to do a season 2, just because the show was so bad it couldn't really generate a lot of buzz for itself. There just was not a lot going on. People just did not gravitate towards the show. And having watched the entire season, I understand why they couldn't generate any buzz for it. So let's just go down the line. First of all, the writing sucked. The writing actually sucked. The writing was very horrible. It was supposed to be a comedy, and I'm going to tell y'all right now, there was not one instance in any of them episodes where I even smiled genuinely at a scene that was supposed to be comedic. There was no comedic quality in the show at all. First of all, none of the actresses are comedians. Not to my knowledge, they better not be. Just the writing itself, the dialogue was not very good. It was unrealistic. And my biggest issue with the writing was what was the pretense of their friendship? I couldn't understand why these 4 women were friends. At no point in the season did they ever describe or say how these women knew each other, or how they met each other, or why they were friends in the first place, or what was the common thread between these women, what linked them together. They didn't work in the same professions. They weren't in the same, grew up as friends as children. They never said, we all went to the same school, so we've been friends for a long time. None of that. Like, there was no context given for them even being friends to begin with. And I thought that was really strange. Being a writer myself and having written stories, like I've written fan fiction, right? Probably in totality about 6 novels. I've written about 6 novels. I did that anywhere between probably 2015 and 2016, or 2014 and 2016, or something like that. Probably more so like 2013 or 14 through 2016. I was writing a lot, and I was posting those fanfics, because I wrote fanfics for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles especially when the newer movies came out. And I was actually had written for the Predator, because I actually like the Predator. And I actually need to pitch the story that I wrote for the Predator because it's the bomb. But anyway, beyond that, as a writer of stories, as a writer of fiction, right? And a writer of nonfiction, because I have a book that's going to come out this year. So as a writer overall, and as an author, I take it very seriously, writing stories, writing dialogue, writing characters. And one of the things that you have to do when you're writing and when you want people to be invested in what you wrote, and especially if it's fiction, you have to make the characters both believable and relatable, which means that you have to build depth for the characters, right? You have to build depth for them. You have to give the character a character. You have to give them personalities. You have to put them in situations that your reader, or in this case, the person's watching, is going to be able to relate to, right? Is going to be able to relate to, and they're going to say, oh, wow, I care about what happens to those characters. And in this show, you don't care what happens to none of them. None of it is interesting. None of it really speaks to you or resonates in any way with anybody. It's just slapped together. These characters are slapped together. And that is the writing. That's the writing. The writing encompasses the plot. There was no plot to any of this. And there certainly was not any good subplots, right? You had characters in certain situations, and you try to make it where their lives were interwoven some kind of way, but it just didn't work. It just didn't work. There was nothing. These were the same women that wrote Girls Trip. No wonder I didn't watch that. It looked stupid. The trailer for Girls Trip looked stupid. The little dialogue that I heard in those trailers sounded stupid. And now that I watched a whole season of a show from these same writers, it's stupid. It's stupid writing. Like, that's one of the things that I despise is not writing characters and situations and dialogues that make sense to people, that say something. If you're going to be writing a show, you got to say something. The only show that didn't have a plot, that it was just episode to episode goofy stuff going on, was Seinfeld. But Seinfeld was actually funny. Okay, it was a show about nothing, and that's what they said it was. It's a show about nothing that doesn't have any discernible plot. There's no specific thing or goal that the characters are trying to reach. There's just their everyday living and the stuff that four friends are going through. And even though you never knew why Jerry, George, Elaine, and Kramer were friends, it didn't matter because the show was funny. Now, Jerry and Elaine were they were exes. George was like his friend. Why was Kramer their friend? You know what I'm saying? But you never stopped to question it because the show was funny. And it was relatable in a certain kind of way. It's like, man, you know what I'm saying? Don't you hate it when, this happens or that happens or whatever? And it was such a off-kilter, offbeat, quirky kind of show that it worked. It actually worked because it was funny. The writing was actually good. Even though it wasn't super deep, Seinfeld's character really was just him. And the other character, George, is goofy. You know what I'm saying? This is Kramer's out of his mind or whatever. Elaine's sane, and so is Jerry, but they goofy though. And I'm saying that because that was a show that didn't have a discernible plot, but it was a hit. This was not a hit at all. This show's not a hit at all. Like, to the point where I'm going to share something with y'all. Finding thumbnails that fit the show was very difficult. This is how much of a buzz this show didn't create. It didn't have, okay? Then let's go to the acting. The acting was very, very subpar. It was lower than Tyler Perry movie acting. And Tyler Perry movie don't have They don't have like Oscar winning acting in them. But at least if you're gonna watch a Tyler Perry movie, it's kind of funny, or whatever. Like, this just showed us didn't have any interest. It just wasn't interesting. None of the characters were interesting. I didn't care that Camille wasn't with Ian anymore. I didn't care that she couldn't get her tenure or whatever. I didn't care that Quinn's mother was disapproving of her lifestyle, and I didn't care that Ty was part of the alphabet community. Anything that she had going on with her, I didn't care about Angie and her lackluster, non-existent singing career. Like, I didn't care about none of these characters. And that's a major failing in any TV show, movie, or book. Your characters have to mean something to the people that's watching. Whether it's based in, trying to be realistic, or whether it's completely fantasy, or whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter the genre. And for this to have been a so-called comedy, there was nothing funny. Like, I didn't see any funny. It didn't even have good social commentary. The social commentary was even very lackluster. Like, it seemed like the writers balanced in between wanting to make a statement about feminism, about liberalism, about intersectionality, about all of the things that's all of these buzzwords that people are concerned about, equality and yada, 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 but they failed to make the statement. So it was not impactful at all. They wanted Whoopi Goldberg's character to be a good counterbalance for Camille's character, a sort of to work as a way to anchor Camille and make Camille look at herself in the mirror and see the kind of mistakes that she was making. But it just didn't work. It just fell flat because Whoopi Goldberg has always been known for comedy or some form of comedic. She was always witty in her roles or had good one-liners in her roles or whatever, especially back when she was really popping, like in the 80s, right? When she was younger. So, but that was even missing. That was missing. It seemed like the writers wanted to make commentary, like the scene that I never got to with Ty going to the barbershop and the men were having a crude conversation about women and sex and all that type of stuff. And she had the audacity to get offended, but I thought she was one of the guys. So it shouldn't matter to you the way you do women, the way you slur through women. Like, that should be right up your alley. That type of conversation should be right up your alley. But she called herself getting offended because, after all, she's biologically a woman. It doesn't matter that she's butch, right? It doesn't matter. So I just found the entire show to be problematic from one end to the other, from the bad writing to the bad dialogue to the bad acting to a non-existent plot, or at least a plot that no one's interested in, and lack of character depth. But worst of all was the horrible message that they send to young Black women, reinforcing BS narratives that keep Black men and women separated, reinforcing the stupid narratives about Black women not needing men, on the one hand, but then wanting them in the next breath, about these so-called powerful women who were independent, who were strong, who were doing it on their own. But when you took a closer look, their lives were really in shambles. These women were really unhappy. These women were really miserable in the things that they had chosen to do with their lives. And it was just not effective. I wouldn't recommend anybody to watch this show or to try to glean anything from it. There are other shows you can glean more out of the dynamics between Black men and women out of reality shows. But Harlem is a big thumbs and womp womp. It's a big miss. It's a miss for me. I didn't enjoy anything about it. There was nothing that they had no replay value, no entertainment value, no social commentary value. It had nothing to make you think about it. It had nothing to make you, when you turned it off, you were glad that it was off. It wasn't anything that could really spark, you know what I mean? Like true thought, like, man, these characters really went through something. Let me, even other fictional work has that effect. People talk about, Lord of the Rings, you know what I mean? Books that was written so long ago. But you can still look at those characters and say, man, I wonder what those characters are thinking. Or this could have been, what this character was going through at that time. And it's a complete fantasy. Like that book, that whole trilogy of books was a complete fantasy. That was the fantasy genre. There was nothing about it that was set in reality. Right? But it just didn't work. Like other shows like The Walking Dead, it's even kind of a fantasy, but there are hyper realistic situations going on in it. You can see and you relate to those characters. You care if a character went through something or if a character died. You know what I mean? Like you cared about that. Even the villains, you cared about them. Shows like Sons of Anarchy, you cared about the characters. You either liked them or you disliked them, but you cared about them. You cared what happened to them. It was a plot going on. It was intrigue happening. The writing was just good. So you were interested from one episode to the next. You were actually interested in what these characters were doing and why they were doing what they were doing and what was going to be the outcome of the choices, So those are the differences between shows that are really good and shows that fall flat, just like this one. Even other comedies, like I said, Seinfeld. Some people like The Office. Remember The Office? That was pretty funny. I never fully watched that one all the way through, but the episodes that I saw was funny. Even shows like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like those first few seasons, funny. The show was whacked out, right? The characters was whacked out. But it was a funny show. So you watched it. This one had, I can't think of any redeeming qualities for Harlem, the show. I doubt it gets a second season. If it does, I don't know who's in charge of that, but they would need to be questioned heavily as to whether or not they should keep their jobs. So that's all I got for you with Harlem. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend young ladies watch it. There's nothing to learn. There's nothing to get from that show other than the usual feminist BS for Black women. So sound off in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe to the channel if you've not. Once again, I'm your host of Crimson Cure, and this was my perspective. Bye-bye, Crimsonites.
Hey guys, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. And if you've got more to say on the topic, leave a comment down below. Also, don't forget to support our sponsor who so graciously supports this channel by clicking the description box and the link for A-Game at agameherbal.com. You can go ahead and get a 10% discount off of your next purchase using the code Kendra10. This has been yet another Crimson Cure production, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.